Yo, what up? It's Add 2, the one-man duo, and you're checking out my 247HH King Bars. This is from a joint called Broken Promises. Tears from heaven, the rain came from God's eyes. In the same water was baptized. You matter like black lives. Rap one track, back one track mine. Oxymoronic, I'm trying to find where the facts lie. Felt the gravitational pull from the pulpit, right? From out the pool, I jumped back to the bullshit, right? Back to school with these hotheads I was cool with. Full clip, mixed with a fifth is nothing to fool with. That section right there was trying to draw this parallel where it was like, in my eyes, I feel like when it's raining, you know, it's like God's crying. And then also with all the things that was going on within society, especially with us, you know, as black people, I felt like we turned to religion and a lot of it to get us through. So a lot of us is like pulling and trying to hope for something else. And so we just look to God for our strength and for some sense of like sanity within this crazy world. But I've had this parallel that I said, like, if the rain is like God's tears, but he's crying so much, that this is the same water that we're getting baptized in. It's enough water for you to almost like to change your whole life with. But I always feel like during times of turmoil and hurt and pain, that's what we as a culture have always been driven towards, is towards, you know, a higher power. And sometimes you need that in order to survive these harsh conditions that we live in. And I think it just helps people to deal and to cope. Felt a gravitational pull, pulled from the pulpit, right? From out the pool, I jumped back to the bullshit, right? Back to school with these hotheads I was cool with. Full clip, mixed with a fifth is nothing to fool with. That section right there is talking about how even from religion, we still are kind of like teetering this line. And I was always teetering this line where my grandmother, she's really spiritual. But at the same time, I was kind of like the one who was trying to be halfway in the streets, halfway out. And a lot of the times, the people who I hung out with, they didn't necessarily match the spiritual person that my grandma thought we were supposed to be. I was definitely hanging out. Like all my friends, matter of fact, now that I think about it, like my best friend, he was in jail by the time I even got to high school. All my friends were selling drugs, and I was the one who was rapping. And they always used to tell me, like, man, Dre, stay out of it because, you know, you got potential, you know, but I always like to stay around them because I felt like I didn't want to feel like I was better than anybody because, truth be told, we was all, you know, one mistake away from, you know, being depressed or being hurt or being in jail or being, you know, whatever the situation might be. And so it kept me balanced. And I always never wanted to neglect that side. Like, I didn't want to be too far spiritual or too far in the streets, and wanted to find that balance. Full of foolish pride, we trying to survive the summertime. Used to cop shirts, now I wear they faces on front of mine. Trying to find signs in skies, disguise, cover my eyes, my hands tied, a wave and saying another goodbye. The byproduct of Little Debbie and Flaming Hots. Ain't got a lot, but I thank God for what I got. Mama said we was blessed. She always said it at the moment when I knew she was stressed. She had 3 of us. It's funny how the money would stretch. It's like yoga, sharing sodas, though the older I get. Feel like I owe her a debt I can never pay, but I bet I'ma try as I might, leaping with faith, I bet I'ma fly. Remember the times when we was, remember the time, but Mike turned into dust. It's fucked up when you grow up and realize how short that this life is. Midlife crisis delivered by Christ, delivering life like midwife in the middle of the night. This little light is still shining bright. Heaven's one hell of a height, but I'm just praying that we reach it. Change this world before you leave it. Man, I see it. That part where I talk about remember the times when we was watching Remember the Times, and you know, I was watching that video when I was writing this. It was like it came up on the screen, and I was thinking about how Michael Jackson was this really, really powerful, almost like superhuman figure, and how his legacy seemed larger than life. And even when watching that video, I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like this is so iconic to me. But I was seeing this parallel of him, like, in the video, he turns into dust, like while he's running away from Eddie Murphy, you know what I'm saying? In the guards, like he turns into dust, and they're trying to draw that parallel of almost like life. As iconic as it is, and even though you could leave a great legacy, at the end of the day, we all gotta die. It's like, you don't know when you're gonna go. They always said if you got a birthday, then you have a death day, and you could be celebrating it, and you don't even know it. And so knowing that we only have a certain amount of time here, the goal is to make the most out of it. It's like, yo, change this world before you leave it. You know, make your mark on this world because you don't know when it's your time to go. When I wrote this song, I had been going through a phase of like getting really bored with rap. And I'm always trying to find new ways to challenge myself. And I've been like really trying to toy with this idea of like, how can I make something really, really complicated seem simple? So that if somebody who was just casually listening to it, they'd understand it and they just see it as a story of growing up. But for the people who really like enjoy lyricism and wordplay, they'd be able to find all these different layers and they'd be able to hear all these oxymorons and wordplay and similes and things like that. So my goal was trying to find a way to keep both sides happy, because I always hated when lyricists was like so complicated that nobody understood what they were saying. I wouldn't want to be deep just to be deep. Like, I'd much rather the world understand it than it be too complicated. Most of the time when I'm writing, it's always driven by the beat. Like, when I hear a beat, I always wonder to myself, like, what's the emotion behind it? What story is it trying to ask me to tell? How am I needed? You know, at what point am I doing too much? I'm always trying to find this balance between songwriting and MCing, in a sense, because sometimes you could do a little bit too much of the other and lose track of the other thing. So, but I'm always inspired by the music. Like, that's really where it starts. If I don't have the music, it's really hard for me to pull from anything. Like, I need to have some point of reference, and it's usually drawn from the emotion that's set within these instrumentals. During the time when I was away from music, it was like a divorce or something. Because at first, I wanted to pretend as if I didn't love this thing. I wanted to act as if I could live without it and that I was cool. But I would go out to shows and I'd be getting that itch again. I'd be, watching other people record and I'd be kind of getting that itch again. And every now and then I walk in the booth and put headphones on and I'm like, man, you remember what this was like? Like, you remember you used to love this. But I was so jaded from the experience with it, because it's like you kind of get into it and you have this idea about what it's supposed to be. We get sold this dream about what an artist is. And then when you get there and you find out that it doesn't really exist the way you wanted it to. And then also when it comes from the entities that you kind of looked up to, and they're not the ones they're not what they seem either, then it's like, dang, well then what? What do I have? And so it was kind of like reality came crashing down on me. And I need to find a way to love the thing that I love the most, because rap saved my life. Writing saved my life. That gave me a voice and made me somebody in the world that didn't really care about me. To not do that was tough, but the thing that got me back to it was, unfortunately, when I lost one of my mentees who got killed over the summer, and it kept hitting me and said, the only thing he wanted to do was rap. And you mean to tell me that you're still here and you can, and you're not doing it? And I told myself, like, I can't waste my gift. He really was this person, the energy. I remember he walked into the studio and he was like, one of his goals was, even though he wasn't a typical rapper at first, he pushed himself to be it. One day I remember he was supposed to come to the studio, and a couple of other kids had told him, he's like, nah, we're getting ready to actually leave, so you could just meet us somewhere else. He decided to go to another place, and unfortunately when he went over there, these other people had got him set up, and unfortunately they killed him. It really kind of just reminded me just like how short that this ride called life is. How important it is for you to have things and people around you who love you, and just not take this life for granted, or not take anyone that we have in our lives for granted. Because I think had I known, I would have did everything to tell him to come over where I was. But God has other plans, but he doesn't make mistakes. But you just gotta live with it. This ended up being the song that kind of inspired the project. I wanted to find a way to create this element of soul, this element of just like complete musicality and message, and somehow, some way pull it all together. And the project right now is called Jim Crow the Musical. And I'm hoping that if everything is going the way it is, man, it sounds like it's going to be like a really, really impactful thing, a very personal project. And every song that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to have a certain level of honesty that I haven't had on other projects. And hopefully something that I think the public will be able to register with, that hits them in the heart too. Rest in peace, Tae Tha.